I got into a lot of procedural arguments with our own leadership who didn't think that we should be cutting off funding what they called mandatory spending. So in the end, the Rules Committee voted down my amendment and would not allow me to offer my amendment on the floor that would have passed, and in the House at least would have cut off all funding to implement or enforce Obamacare. There are $105.5 billion automatically appropriated by the bill, and I will call it a deceptive fashion. In this year and next year, there are $23.6 billion that are already in the pipeline to implement and enforce Obamacare. The irony is that if we had faced a government shutdown, when you would see federal offices close and lights go out across the land, if we had faced that, the lights would still be on for those who are implementing Obamacare, because that money goes on and regenerates itself. It's not subject to the appropriations process. It's an automatic appropriation written into the bill. And so in any case, I wasn't able to shut off the funding. We had a vote on that, succeeded in the House, failed in the Senate, so we didn't shut off the funding. We didn't repeal Obamacare. And we worked for $100 billion in cuts in March under the continuing resolution. That got carved down from 100 to 61.5 to 38.5 to some number below there that's embarrassing to tell you. I don't want to say it. So I'm not very happy with the accomplishments in the budget cutting that we should be doing. And when we got into the debt ceiling debate, America's once again consumed with a big debate. And once again, we end up with not very much change. And it works like this. The baseline spending, that's the projected spending as it increases going out. If we had done nothing on the debt ceiling other than raise the debt ceiling, then the national debt 10 years from now would be $28 trillion. With this debt ceiling deal that some did a victory lap on for fiscal responsibility, I could not bring myself to do that. Our national debt in the end of 10 years, $14.3 trillion the day it was passed, jumping up every day now. That would have been $28 trillion in 10 years, our 10-year budget window. Now is projected to only be $26 trillion. I am just so relieved. I can't wait to let hopefully my next grandchild know that they owe Uncle Sam on the day they're born something maybe less than. My little granddaughter is 10 months old. Ronald, well, she's named after Ronald Reagan. Reagan and King. And she owed Uncle Sam $44,000 on the day she was born. When she's 10 years old, she'll owe him $88,000. And I haven't been able to do the math on what she'll owe Uncle Sam before she can go to work and start to pay taxes and contribute. But if you double that again, you get the idea of the direction, the trajectory of the national debt. It must be harnessed. It must be brought under control. Even the Ryan budget that we've heard so much criticism of doesn't balance for 26 years. And Danny knows a minute, Marilyn and I have 3 grown sons in their mid to early 30s. And I think they did work in a year or two when they first got into the job market. In fact, I know they did because I was working when they were nice and young. But as far as being on their own, they maybe had a year or two that they worked when the federal government had a balanced budget. And since that time, we have not had. And 26 years added to that, they will be knocking on the door to Medicare and Social Security and never having worked for their full career under a balanced budget. With debt, when you have a deficit spending every year, of course you have accumulated debt every year. This accumulation of debt will break us, and there's only a couple ways out of it. One is you pay it off, and the other one is you print money that has less value and you pay it, you service the debt with that. And I don't like either one of those. I don't like the option of printing money. I want to have a sound dollar. I want to have a good balance of trade. And I want to compare, I want to send this message off again to the White House. I think they're out of cards. I think that the White House, I heard this directly from the president, and I remember the day and the date and the location, but he said that Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal, he said the word actually did work, but he lost his nerve in the second half of the 30s and got worried about spending too much money. Therefore, he pulled back, and when he pulled back, that brought about, these are all Obama's words, a recession within a depression. Unemployment went up, and when unemployment went up, then along came World War II, the largest economic stimulus plan ever. Well, I don't see it that way, and I have read the history with significant detail through that. I think that when you borrow money and try to stimulate the economy, it is the equivalent of a giant economic chain link. What you do is you may diminish the depths to which you might otherwise fall temporarily. You give the economy a little bit of a sugar high, but just like any business, if you borrow too much money, you have to service the interest and the principal, so it delays your recovery. And that's what I think we have happened here. Obamonomics in the economic stimulus plan to the trillions of dollars has delayed our recovery. Now we have to recover from the stimulus plan as well as a downward economic spiral. And I am not a Keynesian economist. I'm the exact opposite. I adhere to Adam Smith and I adhere to Milton Friedman and my experience in having to do this without any money myself. So all of those things are good experiences for me, but I've taken you through this debt and deficit and the Obamacare piece of this. We can talk about any subject that's on your mind, and that's those that are in the front of mind. I might mention also that if the president and the executive branch decide that they want to ignore the law and tell people that you're here illegally, but if it's inconvenient to you and you have not committed a, quote, serious crime, then we're not going to enforce the law. I think that's a violation of the president's oath of office. He shall take care that the laws are faithfully executed. That is constitutional. That's part of his oath. And so I think the president is obligated to do. So I have just sent out a message calling for hearings before the House Judiciary Committee where I sit to bring Eric Holder before the committee under subpoena if necessary, and also bring Janet Napolitano before the committee under subpoena if necessary, to let the world know that they are not just not doing their job. They have issued de facto amnesty, and they're determined not to enforce the laws that are on the books because they disagree with them. And how can you take an oath of office to take care that the laws are faithfully executed? And how can you take that oath of office and then defy your own oath of office? So there's much to discuss about and that's the things streamed off the top of my head. I look around the room and I see a lot of good friends, and I really appreciate a chance to see you all, and hopefully I get to hear from a lot of you here. Scott's got a microphone back there, and so he's going to be the keeper of whoever has the floor, unless I interrupt him. Pretty unlikely to do. Scott and Corey and our staff. And I'm going to also, Scott, before you hand that microphone over, Scott operates out of the Council Bluffs office, and Ida County based originally, so he's an ag guy that he likes dirt and wind and things like that. Cassie is going to smile and wave at you there, and she's from Sioux City. And the unfortunate thing about that is that Cassie's work in our DC office is diminished dramatically, and she's going to stay with our office out of Sioux City. But now on October 15th, she's going to be the bride, so I'm happy for Cassie and James.
Mr. King, I got a question for you. I'm a younger Republican. I've been registered since I was 17 and a half, and I've voted for you every time, but the thing is, with Obamacare, and like senators and congressmen and the presidents, this Obamacare doesn't affect you. This affects Americans who are not in politics. And what is your view on that?
I'm going to have maybe ask the question back to you. It's affected every day of my life. I've mounted an effort every single day to work to undo Obamacare. It's an affront to the liberty that all of us have that is guaranteed to us in the Constitution. And we need to be thinking about this. I mean, I could take you down piece by piece of this, the economics of it, and I just take it as a given that we know that we can't afford it, it's unsustainable, that it will reduce the investments in research and development, it'll create rationing and long lines, it'll reduce the quality of the care that we have, it'll result, again, I said in rationing. Those things are all part and parcel of Obamacare. We can discuss and debate all of that. I think they're all great big negatives, and any one of them alone is enough to sink it as far as I'm concerned. But the one that is the most egregious is the one that I believe is spoken about the least, and that's this: our rights come from God. And it isn't just Steve King's opinion, that's the opinion of the people who signed the Declaration of Independence. And I think that the founding fathers were moved around at his directive, and they, with his help, discovered liberty. And freedom, liberty, depending how that fits within your own definition internally. Obamacare is an unconstitutional takings of our liberty. And you, at your age, or me at mine, under Obamacare will not be able to go out into the marketplace and purchase a health insurance policy of our choice. If you're sitting there with a let's just say you're sitting there with $500,000 in your health savings account, and you decide that you want to purchase a health insurance policy with a cheap premium and a $10,000 deductible and maybe a 20% co-payment on major medical with a cap on it at 1 or 2 million, whatever you want to do. You can't do that under Obamacare. Policy is not available because the administration decides that in their nanny state perspective, you can't make that judgment, they need to make it for you. The most sovereign thing that any of us have is our soul. The second most sovereign is our body and our health. And Obamacare is a takings of the second most sovereign thing we have is our health. It is a nationalization of your skin and everything inside. And it's a 10% tax on the outside if you go to the tanning salon. I mean, doesn't that just make you think, how can I be an American and live under the suppression of someone taking the management of my health care away from me and then commanding you to write a premium check out of your earned paycheck, commandeering your paycheck for the first time in the history of America and making someone, all of us, and that they're employed, buy a health insurance policy that is either produced or approved by the federal government. And if they can commandeer, what's that going to cost? 15, 20, 25% of your paycheck? Let's say it's 20. If they can commandeer 20% of your paycheck, why can't they commandeer 30 or 40 or 50 or 80 or 90 or 100? Why can't they take over all of your earnings and tell you exactly what you have to pay for? And now I want to give you another piece of this answer. I profoundly believe that Americans we have a broad list of the pillars of American exceptionalism. Many of them are in the Bill of Rights. Freedom of speech, religion, and the press, the right to peaceable assembly, to petition the government for redress of grievances, the right to keep and bear arms, our property rights, no double jeopardy, face the jury of your peers, and states' rights component of the 9th and 10th Amendment. We have all those rights. We have the rights that are protected, that the Equal Protection Clause in the 14th Amendment in particular. Another component of American exceptionalism is free enterprise capitalism. And another component is, this is the unspoken component, and that is Americans have a personality, we have a character, a culture of vigor that's unmatched by any other people on the planet. And it's not just because we're descended originally from the British or the Scots-Irish or later on the Germans or the Italians or the rest of the groups of people that came. It's because, yes, there were superior cultures, especially in those days, that brought us the Western civilization thought process. And they laid out those essential components for us. But the piece that's missing from us that we don't talk about is there's an American vigor. And American vigor comes from being able to utilize all of these components of American exceptionalism, but also because we've skimmed the cream of the crop off of every donor civilization on the planet, the vigor from those donor civilizations. And people with that kind of vigor and those kind of rights can't be living under the yoke of socialized medicine. Just to say a few words about your question, sir.
Yeah. I was trying to ask too is, I was exempting, I was trying to mean more exempting because Congress and Senate a lot of times exempt themselves from Obamacare and other bills. What do you think on that part?
You mean, should Congress be exempted from Obamacare?
Yeah.
I don't think we should. I think everybody is. But, well, just a minute. I think everybody should be exempted from Obamacare. Otherwise, put us all in the same boat and we'll sink or swim together. That work?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
That's what I was
by the way,
trying to
when I looked at the new redistricting map, I thought your shirt's right, go cycling. So. Scott?
I know that you mentioned you're in favor of the fair tax.
Yes.
Could you elaborate a little more about that, how it would level the playing field between the different economic statuses and also the illegal immigrants?
Okay. Yes, and while you're asking the question, while we do this, when you want to state your name, so that
Oh,
people know.
Andrew Chaffin, sorry.
Pardon?
Andrew Chaffin.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. The fair tax, and there's a second component to that.
And how it would level the playing field for all people with different economic statuses.
Okay. Fair tax is the national sales tax. And I came to this conclusion a long time ago when the IRS audited me one too many times. And I decided I don't want them in my kitchen or in my office, and they're making Monday morning quarterback decisions. The foundational thought on this goes to the Ronald Reagan philosophy. I'm going to give a little more than your question. But Ronald Reagan once said that what we tax, we get less of. Well, the federal government has the first